Let me share my screen. So it's a really small group today. So if you have any questions or comments, you can unmute yourself, or I'll also be checking the chat box, and you can type your question or your comment in the chat box. So just a reminder that we're going to be closed on Monday, January 18th for Martin Luther King Day. So that means that this Friday, tomorrow, you'll be receiving meals for the weekend all through Wednesday. So you'll be getting 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches. And then I also wanted to share a food drive giveaway, a food giveaway. It'll be next Friday, the 22nd from 9 to 12 p.m. It'll be at the LA County Library headquarters in Downey. So you don't need to reserve, you don't need to live in Downey. It's open to anyone from Downey in the vicinity. And all you really need is, all they ask is that there's no walk-ins, and if you can please wear your mask. These are the dates for our upcoming virtual parent coffee corners. So if you would like to take a screenshot, if anything changes, we'll let you know via email and via Schoology and all the other platforms that we have, like our social media. But as of right now, if 2 p.m. works for parents, and if we continue to get parents to participate at this time, these are the dates, and then it'll be at 2 p.m. for the English and 10 a.m. for Spanish. And then just a couple of updates. Finals week is next week from Tuesday to Thursday. So Tuesday the 19th through Thursday the 21st. We don't have school on Monday. And then if your student needs to request a schedule change, they sent a message on Schoology with a Google form where they can submit their schedule change, and they have until tomorrow to request any type of change for the second semester. So you can just remind your student to check their schedule. They should have already received those. So they can check their schedule if they need any changes, and there's a Google request form that they can fill out, and they can find that on Schoology. And then that's it. With that, I'm going to pass over the platform to Ms. Cynthia, who will be leading us in a discussion about mental health stigma. I'm gonna stop sharing. The floor is all yours, Cynthia.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you guys can see me well. My name is Cynthia Caceres, and like Esmeralda has said, I'm from Department of Mental Health, and our job is to promote classes and workshops to the community. And at this time, we have a program, or I would say a topic for today about stigma. And so what I would like to do is I want to welcome you guys also, and thank you for being part of this meeting, and Norma and Teresita and Esmeralda. It's a good part of being in this discussion and maybe learning together what's the stigma. And one of the things that I wanted to start with before I present and share my screen is it's going to be a topic about stigma. And you can open your mic if you like, or if you want to put the chat in the chat box any comments or questions that you might have. Esmeralda is going to help us with that, and or raise your hands if you want to say it, or share something that you will see, or at the end of the presentation, if you guys wanted to share something, you're welcome to do so. So I wanted to start with one of the things with the mental health part, which is a very, very, I will say it, I don't know if you guys have experienced that part where it's very kind of like, we don't want to talk about it. It's not so normal, I will say, I will use the name normal, and that we feel comfortable talking about it. Sometimes we feel comfortable saying about some issues with physical health and but not the mental health. And I think it's part of as a parent, it's very important, especially on this time, getting to know, what's mental health. If we haven't been exposed or we haven't heard what's the definition on that. So I would like to start in sharing my screen with you guys in regards the topics that I will present it to you guys. And so today we're going to start with stigma. And so let me start with uh, the next page, which is going to be what's mental health. I'm not sure if you guys have heard the term mental health, and I would like to explain, well, share with you guys what's mental health. It says mental health is a state of an emotional, physical, psychological well-being in which the individual is available to make use their emotion, cognitive and social resources, and respond to the ordinary demands of everyday life. And so what it is, and with the mental health, sometimes we use a kind of like a clinical uh, type of way of saying this, but mental health, what it is talking about is more how we handle our emotional, how can we be affected, how we feel, and how we respond, social, individual, and so it's very different ways of how we, connect to the people that we have around us. So sometimes it's very difficult to understand this part because we're going through so many stages of the emotional part of our life, especially right now. We're in a situation where all our experience as a family, as a community, as an individual, a very high, emotional situation where we start with worries, we start with, anxious, anxiety, and so many things that we have experienced in one of those especially emotional state is a stress and also depression. And so that's considered part of, what it calls our mental health well-being. And so how can we recognize something that we only hear out there, or we haven't heard exactly what's mental health? I think normally we have heard what is it like. Let me see, like everything we hear about is stress, and we call it stress for everything that we are going through the emotional state. And so how do we share with my family? How do I become the resource for my stability, for my house, and not only for my house, but outside my neighbors, my family members outside my home? How do I maintain that as I keep the emotional stage personally, and how do I I can see what's going on with myself? And so that's what I wanted to start it with, the definition, that what is it, mental health. And the next slide, we're gonna see what's mental health and what's the benefit of having a good mental health. And if it's possible to have a good mental health. We have one of the things that you see, it's something that we have to balance, something that how do we balance, how do we get the capacity, how do we be able to live that kind of life? So, and I will say maybe one of the things is provide the capacity to be able to live life in a physical, mental, and a spiritual balance. So that's one of the part of having a good mental health. And one of the capacity of that we have as a human being, it's being aware of our surroundings, Sometimes I guess we tend to put so much pressure on ourselves, and believe it or not, where our kids are so much of drawing to that, because it's kind of like this punch that absorb everything that we feel, everything that, our actions are, so, and sometimes we're not aware of, our actions. And so maintaining a good mental health, especially in this situation, in this stage of life that we all are facing, it's one of the resources that we have to keep in mind. That it will be a great idea to keep in mind. How do I maintain my good mental health? Who's going to benefit of that? Not only ourselves, but also my family, my community, and my surroundings, people that I work with, people, even when I go to the store, we maintain this type of balanced life. I'm physical, meaning in the physical part, it's like I'm healthy, walking, maybe doing things that it will bring something that it will keep my physical life in a good stand. And the mental part will be, how do I relax? How do I find things that it keeps my worries under control? How do I balance things in my spiritual life? And when we come to the spiritual balance, it goes to what we believe. It's not so much of like what I think I need to believe. It's based on our beliefs, and what we consider our higher power. So that's something that we need to be aware of, those three things, and as a part of our life. Another part of maintaining the capacity, and also to maintain a good mental health, I would say a healthy mind is important in having a healthy body. And saying this, I will maybe making like a little bit of an example, or giving an example. What is it referring to? And I think having a healthy body, it's a healthy mind is as an important to having a healthy body. We normally tend to, now that we start the new year, well, new resolution. I'm gonna start with the new diet. I'm gonna start doing more exercising. I'm gonna eat healthy. And so we worry, as not to gain weight, either because I want to look good, or is either because we need it because my health issue. And which is good, keep that in mind. It's very important. But also keep that in mind as a mental health. What are the good parts that we can, we can help our mind, or a stage of our mental health. And one of the things is to enjoy life more. And I'm pretty sure you might say, well, how things are now, it might be a little bit uncomfortable, because we're not so much of like, we don't have so much freedom like we had it before. We're like limited to different things that how we used to do. And it's true, but also we have to find, I think it's always good to find a different way of having, something that will keep us um, positive, thinking that how do I spend more time maybe with our family, and or going out to specific places that, always with precaution, something that I will keep myself, you know, um, in a safe place, and also not only for myself but also with my family. Manage difficult situation, and I think we're experienced right now difficult situation, which is we can, especially with kids, that they don't understand that well, this is very difficult situation that we're going through, and so it's hard to just access places, or maybe just a simple having a meal out there, to the restaurant. We can't be, we can't access those things anymore how we used to be. But kind of like managing in a different way and kind of like explain it. Well, we don't have that available, but how about if come up with different ideas or solutions to that. Maintaining a good connection with your family, friends, and your community. It's another one. It's very important part of maintaining a a healthy um, I would say a good mental health. Not so much of like visiting because it's limited, knowing the situation that we're facing now. I would say maybe connecting to how we're doing a this presentation. It's kind of like consider community and friends and maintain our friends connected to us. So I would say, you know, come to with a different ideas and maybe ask, what would you like to do? And in this situation, I'm presenting something based on like how our kids, and if we have teenagers, if we have school age, or even with our friends, how can I motivate my friends also who might be experience any mental health situation, any distress, any depression. So it's something to keep in mind. How can we be a support um, for the people who are with us, or that it's in our um, area, or like families. Our mental health can be influenced by biological, generic, social, and environmental factors. So, and those are how we're being affected by, you know, how can, people said sometimes, well, I don't think can we be affected by biological, or how can be affected by biological, generic, or social, or environmental factors. So we will see so many things that we will experience right now, and we will actually we have a kind of like a let me see, it's survey, I would say. It's an activity that we say agree or disagree. And this is something that it says, I'm afraid of people with mental health disorders. And the other one is only, and you can answer yourself. Or if you thought about it before, you know, what was your thinking before knowing what's the mental health? And also after the class, you will maybe it will change your mind. And so that's one of the things that talking about this topic about stigma will kind of like break through those walls of, what is it, because I can say, I'm afraid of people that with mental health disorders. And we don't actually call mental health disorders because we're not, maybe we haven't heard that word mental health disorder. We always heard the afraid of crazy people or someone that is not mental, there, or have some things that, oh, that person it's, has some issues. And so I guess as a community, as a, as a friend, family members, we need to be aware of these problems that we have in our society. And because sometimes we might have people in our family or in our neighborhood or maybe in our community that they're suffering any mental health. And how do we be part of it and as a support system for them? And so it's something that, yes, sometimes it's a little bit frightening to be kind of like around people that we don't know what's going on with them. Also, only adults can suffer from a mental health disorder. So it's kind of like agree or disagree. And it's okay, there's no wrong or right answer to this. People also, there's another question that they ask about people suffer from mental health disorder because they have done something wrong. So it's a question, something that you might think about it or something that you will say, well, I disagree with that. Another one is I feel very comfortable talking about mental health disorders with others. That's another question, that is out there. If the person does not think about this mental health disorder, it disappear. If someone is depressed, you should not ask if they have suicidal thoughts. A mental health disorders can be treated. So it's agree or disagree. So it's like I said, there's no right or wrong answer to that. And so there is a lot of stigma about questions that we have heard or even we have asked before, and we're not even sure what it is. So the next slide, it's about the myth and realities. And this is myth and reality about mental health problems. And so going through this slide, it's about getting to know a little bit of the mental part, the mental health part, and maybe things that we have thought about before about someone being with in this situation. And I will say maybe we all have experienced situations with mental health, and or someone that we know has experienced this situation with mental health, and sometimes we haven't identified, what do we do with this? And so one of the myth, it says once a person displays symptoms of having a mental illness, they will never recover. So that's a myth. The reality is, and this is scientific studies and people who has been studied this, how the mental illness shows. It says that the majority of people with mental illness will improve and many and will recover completely. Recovery refers to a process in which a person is able to live, work, learn, and participate fully in their community. And I want to emphasize a little bit more of this, the first myth and reality, because I have seen my background, it's in mental health. I'm a counselor also and a community members in the different areas. And I have seen this, especially with the school system. I've been working, doing presentations prior to the COVID at the school centers with the community centers. And I have seen parents referring to, as my kid has it has some mental illness. And when we refer to mental illness, it might be some kind of like um, the way of being so anxious, or they have ADD is one of the more things that we see in schools. And sometimes now at the teenagers age, we start seeing more like depression. And so I think one of the something that caught my eyes on this part is, how our kids can recover from this, and or it's something that they have to live with that. And that's one of the myths. Once they have the symptoms, it's like, is they gonna stay like that? They're never gonna recover. And it's not. That's a myth. And one of the things that I just do want to like kind of like go over with that is recovery refresh to a process in which a person is able to live, work, learn, and participate fully in their community. But it's based on the support system that they get. Sometimes I have heard parents complaining, not complaining, but also say concern about, my child has been diagnosed with these symptoms, with this illness. So what can I do? And one of the parts that I think most of the parents goes to the uh, myth. It says, well, I don't think they have to live with this for the rest of their life. And they won't be perform well, maybe their life is going to be miserable, but it's not like that. It's the recovery process is very important to have, and also to understand, to break the stigma to this mental illness. And one of the things that how we can break it is to learn what's the mental illness is. How can we improve in many ways of like one of the access is getting the access to uh, the programs that we have for the mental illness or for whatever it's needed. And it's not only for people that we live with, but also in our community. How can I refer someone to a program when I don't even know what's going on, or like I'm not even know what's the mental illness, can be effective. The next one is another myth is there is no hope for people with mental health illness. And the reality is that there are more treatments, strategies, support from the community for people with mental health problems. And even before more treatments are in the planet, they're planning to in the stage. People with mental health difficult can live active and productive life. So what I'm saying all this, it's I know when we kind of like refer so much of mental health illness. And so I don't know if what you have heard before and what you're hearing right now, it's still unclear because when we hear mental health illness, sometimes we tend to say, well, you're talking about or you're referring to crazy people, meaning people who has symptoms that or not symptoms, but and the actions of, they act this way, or people who have used maybe alcohol or drugs, and maybe that's why they have some mental illness. I want to refer a little bit more and extend also what also is considered mental illness, and it's depression, anxiety, ADHD is another one. And maybe we will have more informations about ADHD in future presentations, so we can understand. It's someone can be normal out there, but it's kind of like when we see the person that they're going through so many things of a learning disability. It's another one that we have in the mental illness. And so something that people, the reality is the people with those symptoms and those difficult things that they're how they live in their life, they can be productive, and they can live a productive life, but knowing what's going on with them, and then also research and getting the treatments and kind of like access uh, those treatments that they're available for them. And that's one of the realities that that is out there. And sometimes because we have so many myths about mental illness, we can access and these programs and things that it's available to help us to live a better life. Another myth that I wanted to share with you is mental health illness cannot affect me. Mental health illness, so the reality says mental health illness are suppressively common, affecting many families. Mental health illness does not discriminate, and it can be affect anyone. And that's what I was referring to. I can look, normal and very happy person, but I can be suffering from one of the diseases that we have. It's depression, stress, ADHD, or learning disability. So, so it does affect, so we have a reality because we do have a illness that, that sometimes it does and in some way discriminate and affect, people. Sometimes having a learning disability, and we're trying to, apply for a job, or maybe at school. And if we're not aware that we having these difficulties in our life, it's very sad to say, we can miss a lot of opportunities, especially with our kids and teenagers. They normally don't share these things. Let me share something personal that I had with my daughter, my older daughter. She was having she has ADHD, and she wasn't never diagnosed with that. It's not severe. It's kind of mild, and but she was having problems every time she was going to have a test, or if she was gonna have, like, she's in college now, but she was so afraid that I'm not gonna pass this test, and so she would start getting so anxious, and she started getting so having so anxiety episode where I'd rather not to take this class. I'd rather drop this class because I know I'm not gonna pass this class and I'm gonna have issues. I'm not. So I rather I'm just gonna drop the class. So until I I've been educating myself, and also I've been working in this field for many years. And so I shared this information with my family, and I said, look, it's okay to feel that something's wrong with me, but also we need to know what it is, what area in my life feel that, something is not okay. So we need to see an specialist, and we go and address this issue. So it's very, it does affect our families, affect many families with this illness. And sometimes we don't know how to call. We don't want to, we just put names and we tag with different things, but we never address the issues with the reality. So the next slide, I have another myth that we have. It says the myth is mental health illnesses are due to weakness or character. And sometimes we kind of like, being using this myth, sometimes we tend to be harsh on ourselves and with others, because sometimes we think that it's just because that's how that person is being part of their weakness or character, and that person is not going to change. So that's a myth. Reality says that mental illnesses are caused by interaction of biological, psychological, and social factors. And this is not, this is what the scientific house study, how the generic and biological factors are associated with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, social influence, such as a loss of a loved one, or jobs, especially when we can relate it to that on this time. It can be contributed to the development of various disorders. So one of the things is like schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, a little bit more, something that we need to get it from our professional, and someone who can diagnose, those type of disorders. But also we can be influenced as a social, and then affect our mental, and affects our emotionals also, and which is, losing someone. And especially in this pandemic, we have experienced, maybe if it's not personal, but we have heard from other in our family members in our community. So it does affect everyone. And so how can we be more aware of these things, and how we manage, this psychological, emotionally factors that we experience, especially around this time. Another myth is I cannot do anything for someone with a mental illness. That's a myth. That's something that, and we tend to do that. We tend to say some things like that, and because of what we have experienced, or I will say maybe we tend to say well, I can't do anything for someone with mental illness. And I would think we tend to say these things is because either we're not aware what's mental illness, or we're not aware what's happening with them. And so the reality is we can't do much more than we think, and starting with the way of we act or speak. Avoiding labeling people with the word crazy. Sometimes I don't know if you guys have heard this word especially with the young populations or the young crowd. It says crackpot or moron, or things like that. That sometimes they use these words, and they tend to say that a lot. And so the fact is, or the reality is, that learn the facts about mental health and treat people with mental health illness with respect and dignity as you would like any other person. So that's something that we don't want to face that reality. And sometimes we just label people with these names that we just mentioned before. And so it's very important how we relate to someone, or how we refer to other people that experience mental health illness, because it's something that, we need to break that stigma in our society. And I think the only way that we can break that and access the resources is through breaking the stigma and not discriminate people for what they're going through, even if it's something that we can see, that their actions are very notable. That okay, yes, it's that person is crazy, or that person is we tend to say that, but it may be changing the way of how we referring to someone with mental health illness. Maybe saying that person needs some kind of a resource, or some kind of access to, mental health. And so that's why I will say maybe accessing the resources that we have in the county where we live, in the clinics, or reaching out to our professional. I would say the main one is breaking the stigma and discriminations towards the mental illness. And so it says stigma and discrimination affects the quality of life and human rights of a person with mental illness. And so, and we see that a lot, and especially in schools, our kids, sometimes we need to address these topics also with them, how they referring to their friends, or either people or in their classes. And so one of the things it says, how can we create a better area where we can stay, or either neighborhood, or our community, or even with families too. I just want to share something that I remember right now, that it was one of my coworker. She said one day, we were invited to one of my family parties. And when we arrived, my son has a ADHD problem, so it's very hyper, and he likes to talk a lot, and also he's very active, and he has so much energy. So as soon as we walked in, my son was like normal, acting like normal, and his behavior. And so one of our family members made comments about, well, here it comes, here it comes, the crazy guy. And so, and all the people who were there, they start laughing, and it's like, oh yeah, so sometimes we, even though we don't tend to say things like to make someone feel bad, but it's, I would say people who make those comments is because they're not aware of, there is a mental illness, and sometimes we're not, and that's what we tend to label people with those names. And so this screen that you guys are seeing right now, it says the meaning of the mental health stigma. And I'm not sure if you can see the whole, let me move my, so you can see it. It says the word stigma. It comes with from the Greek language of means mark, or the term coined to refer to bodily making, and that we were intent to display something negative. For example, types were marks with branding irons. This is something that it was something that we label, that we put and people like, and so that's how we're referring to the word stigma. And the next slide, what is a stigma referring to? So a stigma refers to attitudes and beliefs that motivate people to feel fear, rejected, or avoid the person who acts or seen as a different, and is labeled as having a diagnosis of mental illness. And that's what I was referring to. My friend, my coworkers, experience that she had with her son. And so we tend to do that, and label and having, names for people with mental illness. And I think it's more about, about fear or being rejected also, or to avoid, to say the right things about the person. And sometimes I will say maybe 80%, I would say it's more not knowing what mental illness is. And people will act different, and not, when actually we keep using words as a not, that person is not normal. No one is. Let me tell you, it's sad to say, but we are not normal, because in some way we are experience many different illness. Emotionally speaking, we are all are affected by it. And so so we can't say that we live a normal life, because we haven't recognized that we have some issues with our mental health. Why the discrimination? I will talk about a little bit more how the discrimination affect, or how does it exist, or how is it the discrimination affect the mental illness. So it says, this is a study that they did. It says discrimination exists when people act based on their feelings or rejections and discomfort towards people suffering from mental health illness, and deprive these people their rights and the opportunities in life. So I don't know if you know anyone, or have you experienced, or anybody in your family members have experienced something like that, or have you heard from friends or anyone that had shared with you guys discrimination, and discrimination is not only saying, well, you can't get the job because you have this mental illness, because that's not what normally happens. But it can be simple as, going and rent a place of living, and because they have some mental illness, and so people either get evicted by that, so that's another experience that I had seen before with discrimination on that sense. That maybe they're not aware of, how they can, maybe they can be sued, because if they evict someone they do an eviction with someone who has experienced mental health, they can be in a huge lawsuit. But I have seen in places that I have lived before, and that I had a neighbor who was suffering from depression and anxiety, and so she had episode where she was having breakdown with anxiety attack, and so she has so much of fears, and she used to scream at nighttime, So people were complaining, hey, the lady, the crazy person who lives in that unit, it's going, out of the blue, she started like throwing things, and we hear things around, and so, or she started screaming out of the blue. So they asked, she got a notice, and she got a notice of eviction notice. And on top of that, she was having another type of behavior that wasn't going with the rules or regulation that the property has. But when I start seeing those issues, I was thinking, well, that person is going through, some mental health illness. So the first thing, it's kind of like, and I addressed it to the management company, and I said, well, maybe you guys need to offer some kind of resource, or maybe, maybe get someone from the public health helping, because that's some mental illness that the person experienced. And so it's not fair that, she's not getting the resources maybe. And it's sad to see someone to be put in an eviction, or leaving her place. So, there are discriminations. And so what can we do about it? So one of the things is to be aware that there is discrimination out there. But we also, knowing that we're not alone, and we have resources, and also knowing that, to recognize that I'm going through some mental illness in my life, or I'm experiencing some mental illness in my life, and I have the right, that I can't access some resources, and also I have the rights of protect myself, and knowing that I'm not alone on this, and also share that information with people that we know. There's so many agencies and support system that we have, and one of the places that we have, or the agencies that it's more known, besides the Department of Mental Health, and in Los Angeles County. We also have another agency called NAMI. Not sure if you guys have heard it before. And this is an agency which has been helping a lot of people with mental health illness. And it's kind of like a support system. It's a group support system that they have in different areas, and it depends where you live. But normally they have groups where they have a group support system, where if you experience, or someone in your household, or someone in your family has experienced, or they're experienced any mental health illness, you can be part of these groups. And they're very good support system, a very good support program, where, not only we get educated in so many areas in the mental health illness, but also they have a lot of resources where we can be connected to it. And also, how can we live with some illness if we experience ourselves, or our loved ones, or maybe friends. So it's very important to kind of like know and share this information, because the people that I reach, you can't reach out. But the people that you're reaching out, I can't be access. Maybe I don't have access to them. But with this information and getting to know, it's always good to refer to people to, there is hope. And I'm pretty sure that you guys have, know your guys know so well, how can we do our referrals? How can we reach out for any type of help? We're very, especially I see that we're more women in the audience than men. And let me tell you, as a girls, we know and we share so much. It's like, if even the specials that we get, oh, I heard these specials and these stores, or, we share that information. And that's how, we're so expert on that, on the sense of like sharing information with others. So it's very good to keep, I would say it's very good idea to keep this information, and get to know a little bit of, what not only us as a community or as a family members, but also to kind of like share about, we're experiencing as a global community, um, mental illness. It's a reality. It's not a myth anymore, how we used to think about what was mental illness. So it's always good to even share or have a conversation with our loved ones or the people that we're close to, talk about these situations. And so let me see, the next slide is the impact of the stigma and discrimination. We keep talking about the stigma and discrimination, and let me tell you why. How can how the impact of the stigma and discrimination affect us? The stigma, believe it or not, we still have the stigma towards the mental health um, behavior that we have. And there is a discrimination towards that. And you have seen, one of the things that I have talked about, which is tagging people or not knowing what it is. And even with ourselves, and especially with our teenagers, our kids are so much like into tagging, putting tags on people, or not referring to friends or loved ones or themselves on the right way. So one of the various barriers that is obtaining services, and that's, I will say, that's number one. We have in the county, we have so much um, access to the services, and it's free of cost. But the barriers that we have on this is the stigma. We don't want to see it that way. We don't want to we don't want to be labeled. Maybe we're afraid to, oh, if I go to that clinic or if I go access the service, they will think I'm crazy. And it's not. Even asking for a support system, and I would say maybe coaching or someone that mentors, instead of even though they're professional, psychologists, psychiatrists, they're in a different level of support system because they're like the specialists on this and the mental illness. So it's another one. Difficulties on gaining employment. That's part of maybe discrimination. Difficulties on finding housing. That would be another one. There is still the stigma and the discrimination. Lack of support from families, friends. That's another one, because we can't even talk about it. We can't even say that I'm feeling this way. I'm experiencing this type of behavior, or because they see my behavior, don't invite that person anymore because she or he's crazy, or oh, the kids of this so and so, don't invite him to anymore because they have this type of behavior that is not normal. So that's another part of the stigma and discrimination. So, and that's why we tend to isolate more, and not to share and not to talk about these things that we experience. Another one is and I will say, but maybe this is another one of self-esteem that affects our self-esteem. I will maybe put it as a number two, because once we identify these issues, the first thing is our self-esteem. I'm not good anymore. It's a shame. That's embarrassed. I can't even talk about it, and so it's it's something that we need to be aware of. These two out of this list of I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will say maybe out of these 5, I will maybe put barriers in obtaining services and the self-esteem. I will put it in the main ones that we have seen and that are impacting more. And I think it has been impacting more than that. but you know, we have more additional barriers to that. But I will say those are the main ones that I think we need to be aware. And how can we give? And the third one, I will put it as a lack of support from family and friends. And now that we know what's the stigma and what's the and what's the discrimination and what's mental health illness, I think after this presentation, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to have the very good support system and apply it to and share this information with others, because you know, it affect the self-esteem and the human being. So the next one, it's stigma by association. So we have two different uh, things that it will affect our mental health. Sorry, our mental illness. One is the belief or attitude that the family is responsible for mental illness. So that's called a stigma by association. So they believe the way they believe or the attitude and is part of the family responsibility, how we refer to this mental illness. Another one, what can we do to eliminate stigma and discrimination? And we're kind of like using that as a closing, getting closer to the ending of the presentation. And so I don't know if you have those questions, or have you ever asked the question to yourself, or either share with someone, how can we can eliminate the stigma or discrimination with the mental health illness in the community. It will be educating, like what we're doing now. You know, it's kind of like to know what it is, and also to be aware that there is, you know, mental health illness. Another one is to educate those who use negative labels or stereotypes of discrimination to someone, or to describe someone with mental health illness. So, and I think this one, the second one, it's pretty, I will say, a lot more that we see when we label or we describe people with mental health. It happens a lot. And also we should eliminate false ideas and negative by, you know, thinking about that there's no hope for them, or there's no hope, not even for ourselves, because sometimes we experience those illness, and that goes for us and also for our loved ones. And also explain that there is a problem with mental health illness, and there are treatments. And so and also that we have support, that we're not alone in these situations. So now, if you guys have any questions, or what do you think about, you know, how maybe you had an idea, what was it before, or you have a different idea, you know, about mental health illness. Maybe there was a stigma, or you said, well, no, you know, I feel that I can feel comfortable talking about these topics, or I feel comfortable with people who suffer mental illness, and or emotion, I will say emotional behaviors that we're going through. So it's always good to share, you know, what do you guys think? Or if you guys have experienced this before, do you think it's something that, you know, we can be part of it, or I don't know. And what do you have learned today with this topic? Have maybe your idea, your belief has changed, or is something that you will take and say, okay, now I'm aware of that we even myself, sometimes I experience some mental health illness, in which I will maybe break it down to emotional behaviors that I don't know how to handle. Maybe my family are going through something and I haven't seen, or maybe my closest family, or my friends, my coworkers. or even my neighbor or someone, that it's in my community. What can we do about it? So if you have any questions, you're welcome to open your mic and ask questions. If you feel comfortable asking the questions, if you guys feel comfortable, um, typing the questions, you're welcome to share your ideas. It's always good to hear what do you guys think. And I see Maria Hernandez raising her hand. So Esmeralda, if you can help me with that and see if it's
Has her microphone unmuted, so you
Hi.
can, yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, Ms. Casares. A lot of the information that you shared with us is very good. It is the stigma related to mental health issues is very strong, and that's why I think a lot of people choose not to get help. And so I think that a lot of the times, I heard a presentation once which had a really good point, where they said a mental health illness is kind of like an ailment of the body, where if you're sick with something like diabetes or your heart, you're going to need to take medicine to feel better or to stabilize your health. And the same thing with mental illness. Sometimes you are going to require medication, and a lot of times people are scared or of the stigma attached to medication or to being sick with a mental illness, and so they'd rather not go and get the help because they don't want to be attached to the stigma of being in the need of that mental health.
right. Thank you for sharing that, Maria. Anyone else who wants to share or have a question or add additional comments? And I just wanted to add something that, that Maria had said, that, and that's awesome that, that's something that you took with you on that presentation on what you heard, right? And that is something that's kind of like to be aware. I don't know if you see my screen and